நீராறும் கடலுடுத்த நிலமடந்தை கெழிலொழுகும் சீராறும் மதனமென திகழ்பரத கண்டனில் எக்கணமும் அதில் சிறந்த திராவிடனல் திருநாடும் தக்க சிறு நிறைந்தலும் தரித்தனரும் திலகமுமே அத்திலக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இன்பமுற எத்திசையும் புகழ் மணக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழனங்கே தமிழனங்கே உன் சீரிழமை திறம்பியந்து செயல் மறந்து வாழ்வதுமே வாழ்வதுமே வாழ்வதுமே.
அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். பேரவையின் யூத் கமிட்டி இளையோர் கல்வி மேம்பாட்டு குழுவின் சார்பாக உங்கள் அனைவரையும் வரவேற்பதில் பெருமையடைகிறேன். இக்குழுவின் தலைமை பொறுப்பிலிருந்து செயல்படுபவர் பேரவையின் செயற்குழுவில் உறுப்பினராக இருக்கும் Yamika Ramesh. So first I would like to welcome everybody on behalf of the youth committee. The rest of the presentation is going to be in English because this is a college admissions process and how we can maximize our efforts and get the results that we desire. And Yamika Ramesh, an young woman from Florida, she is going to school in Miami, and she is one of the two youth members in the youth board members in FETNA this year. This is the first time we have youth members, and she is the first among equals actually. And she has contacted Mr. Sundar Kumarasamy, who was the ex-vice chancellor of admissions at Northeastern, and arranged this one. And these are some of the things that the FETNA committees have been doing in the past few years, and we will continue to bring such great programs for everybody. And hopefully this is a great start. Thank you, Yamika, for bringing this, and I will leave this to the youth committee to take this forward. Yamika, please come in.
Hi, thank you, Uncle. My name is Yamika Ramesh. I am the chair member for Committee 208, which is focused on youth development and education. On behalf of my committee, welcome everyone to FETNA's College Readiness and Application Strategies session. Thank you all for coming. One thing is, please keep your mics muted throughout the session. And if you have any questions, put your questions into the chat box and we will make sure to answer them during the Q&A part at the end after the presentation. As for now, I'm going to hand things off to our presenter today, Mr. Sundar Kumarasamy.
அனைவருக்கும் வணக்கம். First and foremost, thank you so much for this opportunity to speak to our community. And more importantly, all of you are in the process of making decisions. I'm assuming most of your seniors who are in the application process, or at least juniors, or maybe even if you're kind of your student is in high school, this could be potentially useful. So my hope is to make sure that it gives you enough of the insider view. And I just wanted to kind of also want to make it as much as interactive as possible and avoid things that you might already know, because I don't want to assume that you must definitely know enough of basic things about admissions. But what I wanted to do today is just kind of take you through on majority of the things that you know, plus how do most people don't know, which is basically just to kind of give you a background about my life. I have only worked in higher education for over 32 years. So I've worked in 3 different institutions, and my last position was Senior Vice Chancellor for Strategic Growth at Northeastern. It has been a tremendous run to see and look at a very highly selective and reputed institution, how it continued to be selective just to kind of give you a perspective of me and my team was able to do was, when I first started, Northeastern was 30% acceptance rate. When I left, it was 6.7% acceptance rate. So that'll give you an idea. And also 50,000 students were applying for admissions. When I left, it was 91,000 students seeking admissions. So just to kind of give you the complexities of the world of admissions is simply makes it even more difficult. So this is where I probably wanted to start with. There's so much option is ahead of you as students and parents, and how do you really make a good decision? How do you know you're making a good decision, and how to not to be overwhelmed or worry about the decision-making process itself? Because the one thing I want to start with is like, clearly, there are many things that you can do that will allow you to have a good college choice list that no matter which college you ended up going, you will be great in achieving the goals that you have for yourself. But the main thing that I want to start with is there's so much misinformation and conditioning that many of the students and parents have gone through over the years, because I've seen this thing pretty much for the last 3 decades, pre-internet to with the internet being even making things worse in terms of, especially with pandemic. And there are many things have changed because of test optional. So test optional really changed college admissions in a very deep way. So I wanted to touch some of those aspects of how you can be preparing to make a strong application to the schools that you are aspiring to apply to. And before we do that thing, I wanted to make sure that just make it a little bit fun also for all of you, because I don't want this to become one of those college selection sessions. So first and foremost, Yamika, please help me to rally up the people to just engage, so that like this will help me to know that who and what type of readiness they are going to have with the rest of the discussion. Will be good to have some engagement with the audience too. So first and foremost, I just want to ask, what do you see? Quickly, if you can, anybody can write. Is there anything? Are you able to quickly read what is on the screen? If it is not easy,
it's not clear.
It's not clear, which is good. Is anyone able to read?
Causes bad eye.
Okay, so one person said it is not clear. Another person said causes bad eyes. This is something I want to come back to, because why is the case? Because based on the basic information, what we are trained to look at versus what it is. The second part, quick math. What is the answer?
0.
Okay, anyone else?
Okay. Oh, on 3 lines.
Okay, so if anyone got anything other than 1, you can clearly say you're in the majority, because when you kind of quickly do this math, it'll trip you. And I'll come back to explaining why, because sometimes curse of knowledge or even sometimes overuse of specific rules of engagement might lead you to make a different decision. If you have any other answer, if you thought of more than 1, then definitely that's a very most likely most people will get that answer. How many triangles do you see?
4 triangle, 4, 5, 4, 5.
4, 5.
5. Around
5.
Oh, not 5. More than 5.
Okay.
8, I think. 8 maybe.
0.
8.
0 is the answer. So because there's no single triangle rule is like connected 3 lines, there's none of the lines are connected here. So again, this is something that I just want to quickly go through, because this is something our brain goes into autopilot in making certain decisions. College selection is no different. So that's why I just want to kind of get us into the right mode. Can you quickly read this thing?
According to
Yes.
according to research at Cambridge.
It doesn't matter.
So basically, if you're able to read, every single word in this thing is pretty much wrong. But if you're able to read it, that means we are in autopilot mode. Our brain is kicking in and actually filling the gaps.
Yes.
Okay. So let's read this one and then we'll quickly move into our discussion today. This makes very clear, right? So this is a very clean statement. Can anyone say what is it talking about? Every word makes sense, but when you read it, what is it actually telling us? Anyone? So here's the thing. Let me give you one word and try to read this thing again. Let me say a single word. Kite.
Let's see.
So the main reason why I say this, sometimes a single word can change the entire context of a paragraph, right? So what I wanted to kind of make sure is like when we kind of have today's discussion, this is not going to be like I want to be as interactive as possible, but I also wanted to make sure what do you think you know, and also what other people told you. I would always ask of you to have a suspend the belief system that you might have developed about colleges or college selection, how difficult it is, or how things work. Because I'll tell you right now, there's only few people in college admissions will exactly know how some of these processes are working. And many people in the high school and everything on the receiving end, sometimes they get frustrated also because it is not clear to most people because it's a ever evolving thing also. So I just want to make sure that it gives you a good guidelines that allows you to navigate a complex process that is either you're in it or ahead of you. So the 5 things that I would say is like in your college selection, if you're looking at it, there are 5 things that you have to start with in terms of like narrowing down or even framing your own college selection process. First is I start with passion. I think someone was mentioning about this even before the start of the session, is simply because I hope like you will find your own passion, not somebody else's passion. The key thing is like you're adapting your own plans or somebody else's plan. You have to be very deep in making that decisions because end of the day, because friends said, relatives said, or other peers are doing something versus what do you really want to do? And something, it's not easy, but it's also not impossible. If you really kind of like take time to understand what makes you to wake up in the morning and do it day in, day out, and what gives you energy or what drains you energy, that's the 2 things. What drains you energy is work, what gives you energy is passion to some degree. But those are all a different topic for a different day and discussion. But mainly you should try to narrow it down with your passion. That should lead to what kind of programs that will actually allow you to apply those things to create that intersection of what you're interested in impacting and doing in life, and also what kind of programs, academic programs, and area of interest that you might have, domains that you want to select. And then the third one is really you have to make a decision on where you want to study, how far you want to go from home, how close you want to be. Those decisions are extremely important. Also, how much as parents sometimes may end up knowingly or unknowingly influencing some of these things. So making sure that there's a bubble. As I have my own child, definitely I know exactly what happened. Also, some of these things, how we create a bubble around them, and how do we make sure that they're able to ultimately thrive in the world outside. So the place becomes an important aspect. The fourth one is price, because higher ed is very expensive, whether you go to public or private. It is definitely a big investment everybody have to make. And that leads to the last point, which is public or private, because that it's not just for price, place, and program. It is also for other things, like how big a school you will thrive in, how small school you want for yourself or your son or daughter. So these 5 Ps, I would say, should be a dominant sort of a framing exercise that you may want to use as you're making decisions. So if at all, if you use any of these things, nothing should override on one versus another. In the beginning, at least, the only thing that can override everything is passion. And then it should kind of dictate the rest of it. And the last two things I would say is, once you decide the first three, the last two will be a lot easier to kind of go through. The last part, the next part is like, I kind of, somebody, if anybody might have heard me speak before, I used to talk about GPS. Mainly, each one of us have a GPS in us. That means like first, that's the one that we are in a journey. And that means like you are going to embark on a journey that should guide you. So what is that GPS actually that is inbuilt in you is simply, if you look at it, you need to know where you are in order to go where you want to go. So if that is the case, then your goals must be the first thing. That's part of the GPS, the G part of the GPS. And then the P is actually multi-layered, like you just saw a lot of P's there, but I would definitely start with passion, purpose, potential, and possibilities. That should guide, that should be the P part of your GPS. And then the S part of it is, there are two S's, simply it's your strength and struggles. What actually you struggle with and what your actual strength is. So that should all combined, should actually allow you to design your own path. And definitely you need to really be very clear about this. You are more than a test score or a GPA. That means like you have to figure out to just not too focused on those things, but you need to be overarchingly see this, like you don't go to college just to get a diploma and put it on the wall. It is about working on the career that you're going to be actually going to have multiple careers you will have most likely in your lifetime. So that means it's not just about selecting a prepackaged major. It is about best fit that college for the career that you think, with the type of skills that you're trying to acquire, with the type of scholarship and credentials that you want to get. So overall, that you need to kind of get yourself out of the mindset of test scores or GPAs alone is going to dictate where you're going to be, but clearly making sure that the holistic story is what you need to be able to tell. Why this is important, because colleges actually look beyond the test scores and GPAs. So that's why this is an important statement that I wanted to make. So why that is important? Because there is application is not about GPA and test scores. There is so much emphasis goes into that thing. In reality, majority of the kind of, I would say, highly selective or selective schools can make majority of their class with, top tier, like top 10% of the class kind of a student applicants. That's not what they are looking for. In terms of like, when you look at it, academic preparation is the only place that you see the grades and test scores even ever appears. But in reality, the curriculum is the next part, that it's not just the grades, what kind of courses you have taken, and have you challenged yourself? Are you like taking easy courses and getting A's versus having tough courses and getting B's? The student who's taking tough courses by pushing themselves to get a B will look much more attractive to a college than a student who's taking, lack of a better term, easier courses and not challenging themselves with tougher courses. So the other part of it is like, once you kind of have that one, the next question is like simply community engagement. People ask about like, how do they sort of basically they manufacture a resume. It is very easy to spot because if you really think about it, year after year, when you look at different kind of resumes and essays and other things, most admissions officers know exactly what is a more authentic experiences that student is trying to do to explore the world around them versus basically impress the admissions committee. So in that scenario, the more authentic experiences somebody having in their community engagement and other things is going to be much more important, because I can tell you that there are people who go and actually start a nonprofit and to kind of really create sort of an impressive community engagement portfolio. But that's not normally a high school student would do, specifically if they are taking classes and doing sports and other activities. It's almost like sort of like sticks like a sore thumb in some cases. So you have to be authentically have things that really you're passionate about and do in more multiple things that you may want to try, because in one sense, you are also exploring. Unless you are very clear that you have identified something as your passion from your freshman year of high school or even before that, and you continue to do that, that's also okay. But making sure that you are doing something that really close to your heart and it shows in the depth of work you do. The same thing, your essay is not your resume. It is not, you're repeating what and all you have done is not what an essay is all about. So in reality, writing essays is simply about one of the favorite quotes somebody told me once, like, if ever you find that piece of paper in a cafeteria, if anyone who's reading it should be able to tell that's you without even your name on it. That means, like, it is about your authentic story. And in terms of like some aspect of your journey, aspiration, struggle, or whatever that makes you you, or makes your exploration to be meaningful and real. Again, the admissions officers can easily spot what I call is extremely well-written essay versus a high school student written essay, including many things that they can look for in terms of like how it is done, tips them off in different ways. And intellectual curiosity and personal attributes has to be coming through in your community engagement and your essay. It should not be a separate thing. And your recommendation letter should actually kind of bring all of this thing together, so that like it's not just going to paint a picture of only your classroom work or just community engagement, or something that kind of paints a better picture of you beyond, even inside the classroom, but beyond the classroom will be very helpful. So as I said, this is exactly goes to, many different ways to apply, and making sure that you are taking advantage of, telling a great story. Both academic rigor and performance comes through inside the outside the classroom thing, and also know that applications are holistically reviewed if you're applying to selective or very selective schools. And that's the one thing, that it is not about test scores and GPAs, or too much of a engineered resume or other activities. And then if you really want to think about it, these 5 areas is something that I would say, especially in the test optional world, it's important for you to be able to kind of articulate your academic rigor through the work you have done, and academic ambition. Why? Like basically simply how you're outperforming yourself, what kind of environment, what kind of school you go. If you are going to a very competitive school, then we know that like it's a very competitive school, and how your grades may be reflecting that, but how you're pushing yourself is something very important. Most admissions officers know exactly the type of academic opportunities offered in that particular high school, and also look for the kind of students that normally tend to do well, or even slightly, I would say, in the whole spectrum. They're not trying to look for only the cream. They're looking for a good spread of students with multiple things. The engagement is extremely important. Like, again, the depth of commitment is the key word, I would say. Having sort of multiple things is not necessarily important, but having a consistent and a deep commitment, and also showing a scale of leadership is important. And making sure that the mindset, basically the resilience and the resourcefulness, is extremely important, and also understanding cultures, and that is moving out of comfort zone. That's also another key factor that comes through in your essay or other things that you can do. And making sure that your community representation is also need to come through. Basically, how the college is like a mini country, right? It has so many different, like for example, Northeastern, I always say, it's like walking into a UN building, because 150 countries represented in the classroom, in the campus. So when you're walking by, it is absolutely the most diverse campus you'll ever see. So that is the case. People need to be ready for embracing and kind of understanding how to navigate those things, and also how to enrich those kind of places. Diversity and inclusion is an important aspect of how I would say a student is ready to contribute to a campus culture. So again, I don't want to just make you to read any of these things. Basically, the rigor is evaluated based on the context of what was available to you as a student. For example, if your school don't offer any AP or they are restricting the number of APs they will offer as a spot, don't worry about it, because as long as you're taking an honors class or other things. So there's very clear understanding about how many courses are available, what is the class size, those kind of school-based information is available to the admissions officer. So if your school don't offer AP, no problem, because then that's not going to be held against you. And also that is not going to reflect negatively in the overarching overall evaluation of a student. So it is definitely, it is kind of whatever is available to you, and making sure that you are progressively taking rigorous courses is what most likely is going to be looked by the admissions committee. Clearly, as I mentioned, making sure that you have community engagement and deep commitment, and making sure that you are the quality over quantity. That's what I would just make sure that you focus on. If you have already done it, that's fine. But if you're in the process, juniors or even earlier than that in high school, I would recommend that. And making sure that you highlight that even when if you have done multiple things, make sure the one that you have done a deeper impact or deeper engagement, I would definitely recommend highlighting those kind of activities, and also be specific. And that's important, because then it clarifies, are you just signing up for everything that is available just to put it on the resume, or really you are interested in doing this? So this is where I would say, what do you want when we talk about the personal statement or essay? The main thing is like, make sure it's about you, not anyone else, because in reality, it's basically, you have to have fun writing it. It's not a resume, but make sure that you tell an authentic story that your application otherwise will not highlight about you. So that it should be, because imagine when they are reading thousands of applications in a particular, let's say, 2 to 3 months period, you want to stand out. That means what they are reading should not be like, easily forgettable. It should be leave an impression, something that they are reading, makes them to advocate for your application when they go to the committee reading rounds, and they should be able to tell your story in a strong way. So again, this is a thing, please make sure that you find the recommender who can tell a holistic view of you, and making sure that pick different type of people who can write. And also please make sure that look for the schools, what they are requiring. If they require 2, 3, don't send more than 3, because more is not always better. So making sure that you stick within what they are asking for is important. And if you are starting now, I would definitely recommend making sure that you have an account with Big Future. That is a College Board site, bigfuture.collegeboard.org. That has the best information and best tools available to anyone who's ever starting the college selection process, because it has how to plan for college to how to pay for college, exploring careers, all 3. And definitely that is a very rich and very useful tool that is available, even though they will be kind of a little bit skewed towards SAT, sign up and practice and all those things. You can just skip that, but you can use the site for the rest of the things, because it has the best authentic information that you will ever find in anywhere else. So with that, all that, this is what I want. One of my favorite quote. This is what I use for myself. May your dreams not come true. May your hopes not be fulfilled, because they are based on what you know. You should explore possibilities that has never been touched or reached before. So that's important, because really, I think you don't want to end up living somebody else's plan, somebody else's dream, and somebody else's passion. So that means like really what we think versus what you are capable of. Unleash yourself, explore, and find what is ahead for you. And I am here to answer any questions that you have. And I will end my presentation here.
Sir, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So during the whole process, is it the student that has to do all the things you just mentioned, and the parent just guide them, or how does this supposed to work? Like picking colleges, looking at big future, and all that. Is all the students is the one that does most of the work? Or I mean, I know the students are also a little worried and anxious, and
Yeah.
they are new to this field. It's tough for
Absolutely.
them.
So that's why I'm just started the first thing. You have to have a framing. Ask the simple questions like, how far do you want to be away from home? Because that's an easy question to answer, right? And then what do you want to study is something that they should be able to reflect and say, this is the field I'm most likely to explore, and here are the reasons. And they should be free to make that decision. Because at the end of the day, sometimes I always say, if they are responding to what the peers are saying, parents are saying, or what they think is the one that we wanted to hear, even when we don't say that, they assume that that's what we wanted to do, and they would try to adapt to that. So those are the kind of things helping them to be free, in terms of free in a sense, like within that framework, asking specific questions about, like, your child more than anyone. So you need to be able to clearly say and ask the question, how far because sometimes some of their friends are going far away to the coast. You shouldn't say, okay, go. Definitely, we need to be able to take a lot of practicalities into consideration, reflections about what are the things they are looking for, why they want to make that choice. So it's a guided discussion and a decision-making process. It's a collaborative process, and with a very simple tools is what I would start with. Not necessarily overwhelm them, which college and other things. Once you start narrowing it down with few parameters, it's much easier to actually narrow it down than you think. Because if you have 4,000 colleges, when you decide how far you want to go, what do you want to study, whether it's a public or private, and do they have the programs that you are interested in, it'll come down to probably manageable size.
Yeah, because if I ask my son now, what do you want to do? He says, I don't know.
I absolutely, I would tell you, this is why I'm saying, because sometimes what they think they know is also not going to come true. So that means, like, there's 1 in 2 students, 1 in 3 students come undeclared when they come to college. 1 in 2 students change their major. So if you really think about that stats, because it's so hard for the students to know what they want to study, it's almost unfair to ask them to select a major, because it's more, if it's up to me, my recommendation will be most students should start undeclared and then navigate between at least 2 or 3 areas of exploration, because most colleges support that, and then they make the decision, because they won't fall behind, because all the courses they are taking will be helpful. Because it'll actually put you behind if you are going to say, I'm going to become an engineer, and start taking all the courses, and you struggle, and then you change major, you lost some opportunity and confidence. And that's why I would just say it's important for allowing students to know that it's okay for you to not know what you want to study, because that's a natural place, and that is most likely most students are going to be going through.
Thank you, sir.
Sure.
I have a question adding on to that. So like, as you said.
Hi, sorry, we're going to go in order of the hands that were raised. So I will get to you after Mr. Bala and then Ms. Bamila. So Mr. Bala, can you go first?
Yes, I have a question. First, thank you for the presentation. Some of the things that you said were quite illuminating, and some of my biases have been eliminated. Thank you. You talked about essays are different from the resumes, which is good. So that means can I treat, or can a student treat the essay as an opportunity to say things that are not in the essay, or I mean, that's one, and the other one is who's reading them? Who's like, how many people from the admission squad, not squad, admissions councils read these essays?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So I'll give you a broad answer. It depends on which college you're applying to. For example, if you're applying to a small college that is actually getting, let's say, 5,000 to 10,000 applications, or that's more likely to be a different kind of reading process than when you are applying to a large public university, with tens and thousands of applications. So that's why I said that depends on where your child is applying, because that means you have to really know that like the highly selective colleges are the one that actually use essay and recommendation letters to discern between very identical academically prepared student. Because if you look at two students based on their academics inside and outside the classroom, they look identical, let's say. Then they have to nuance it. And that's when the essay as well as the recommendation letters comes into play. Any school that is having more than 50% acceptance rate or something like that, let's just approximately, I'm just giving a ballpark number, more likely they are not making pure decisions on just any of these things, but except there are some programs within, like for example, even in a school that program-based selectivity will be involved, for example, architecture or different kind of engineering programs might look for specific courses or specific kind of experience. That's when those programs also might use it. So the way I would say is like larger the school, very less likely, I wouldn't never say it's not being used, because it's definitely being used, but in pockets. So the highly selective schools like, top 50 or top even 100, sometimes based on different programs, will use those kind of tools. And one other thing is like, in terms of what to say, it is definitely have to paint a picture, a vivid picture of the student as a person, an intellectually curious for a human being that is actually exploring what they want to do with their gifts and talents.
Who is reading these essays? That's
again, like I said, if it's the larger the one, you are having admission application readers who actually sort through many of these things. But if you're talking about highly selective schools, they'll have admissions committees. They actually, each one of them read, and they actually, sometimes they do multiple rounds of reading. Means like never one person is actually advocating for a student. 2 or 3 people will read and put what they think about the student. So each school have a very different process. So I don't want to speculate that, but I can tell you that much. Clearly, they have admissions committees. They actually meet regularly and discuss each applicant they are considering to advance for admission decision.
Thank you.
And then one thing I think I'll add too. So I go to UF in Gainesville, so they have an honors program. So when they do application reading for that stuff as well, they kind of split the application into 2 parts. So they'll look at your general application that you applied for just the college, and then they'll also look at your honors application if you're applying for the honors program. And they're both reviewed separately. So it shouldn't be taken that what you put into the honors essays is going to be used to grade you in the general admission as well.
True.
Next was Miss Bamila.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sundar, for all the valuable information. Appreciate your time. I have 2 questions. The first one being, so the public state universities, they don't have the ED program. Only the private institutions, they have this ED program. Among the private institutions, I think they name it differently. Some of them say ED and some of them say early action. So by mistake, is it possible for a student to pick 2 colleges? One says early action, but it is not specifically saying early decision. The other private institution saying early decision and applying. And that's my first question. And the second one is, does the college board gives a warning when a student picks, like say 2 ED without knowing? I know it's like binded, but is there a way like by which a college board wants a student? That's my second one. Thank you.
Yeah. So Common App actually has a contract release process and a contracting process. Through Common App, you do it. And that means like this is your guidance counselor also should be watching for those kind of things. So generally it is catchable by Common App. Common App does not allow you to do 2 ED selection,
Okay.
but ED1 and ED2 can happen, because that means like that's a different kind of application process itself. And then the EA part of it, there is very few schools have a binding decision like that. So I don't know exactly how that is handled in Common App, but overall you will be actually given a flag by Common App as well as also the guidance counselor.
Okay, because like I just see Princeton doesn't say ED, it says EA, but there is no way until you go and read it, nobody knows it's a single choice. So they just put it in a bracket, it's a single choice. So then if a person wants to apply for 2 private institutions without knowing, like that was my thing. Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's why I'm just saying, like, they are not early decision. They're not going through the contracting process of those programs are, of course, like few IVs have those kind of nuanced things. It's handful of them. So I just say literally, that's not the predominant practice in higher education.
Thank you.
Sure. And one more thing I'll say, early decision is not binding as much as you think it's binding.
Really?
Yeah. So just, I will put that caveat because I'm just smiling because that was one of the things that most people think, but it is not.
So can we come out of the binding? I mean, like.
Yes.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yes. So one of my friends, one of my seniors, she got into Yale early decision, and then she ended up getting into Harvard regular, and then she just swapped. So it's not end all be all.
So is it specific to colleges, or like maybe like if they find it, okay, it's legitimate, and if the student really wants to go, they'll just let them go?
Nobody will force a student to go to a place where they don't want to go. That's the part I would say. It's in the best interest of the student. So that's why no college that, with the student in mind will never force the student.
That's a good one to know, Mr. Sundar. Thank you.
Sure.
Next, we have Mr. Arasu Chalaya.
Hello, it's an excellent talk. Lots of useful information, definitely applicable. And congratulations to Yamika, Ramesh, and other FETNA youth organizers. To have 182 participants in a call, FETNA-related call, is amazing, historical. So let's continue on that. Quick question. Just I would like to follow up with Dr. Sundar Kumarasamy's comment that nearly 50% of the students getting into college are not sure of their majors or undecided. And he says it is better to go that way and explore. So is it good to do that exploration in a 4-year college, or how best do you think a community college can help to test out different aptitudes or courses the student may or may not like? Thank you.
That's a good question. I will answer it in 2 parts. One, it depends on the student. For example, if a student is academically ready to be in a traditional 4-year college, they should be in that environment. Because community college, it's an environment designed for working adults per se, not for high school students going to community college. So that is not the best environment for them to kind of explore from adult to entering into adulthood. So for academic purposes, going to community college alone is something I would put as an asterisk to know what is the benefits of that. So if they are going to a comprehensive 4-year school, that's when they can actually explore multiple options. And that's why it is better to be at a place where they can explore and seamlessly transition into an academic program. So if it's up to me, if the student is academically prepared, should be in a 4-year college with comprehensive opportunities to easy to select and transition to different colleges.
Thank you so much. I think it's a very good, really like the answer. But many of the students, youngsters, I taught both in community colleges and university settings. Many, even youngsters, join in a community college for cost-wise to get an associate degree and then transfer to a 4-year college. But thank you so much.
Sure.
Next, we have Mr. Shiva.
Hey, good morning, folks. Thanks for taking the call. So I have 2 questions. One is around the brand value of the college versus what they are good at it. Which one should a student pick? The other question, most from a financial perspective, I get a flood of emails from colleges saying my FAFSA application is open and they are asking to apply to their college. I know I'm not yet eligible for FAFSA. So what is the reason for them to come behind and ask to file in the FAFSA application? Is there some hidden agenda to get my financial information because I don't have any agreement with these colleges to keep my information private? Is there a possibility that they could resell and make something out of it? Because a lot of information goes into my FAFSA.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So two things. One, anything you submit to a college is almost like never be sold or never be transferred to any third party. That is like almost like there's close to 7,000 regulations. I'm not even kidding when I say that between state and federal regulations, higher ed have to adhere to. A lot of privacy laws, including GDPR, many things we have to live through. So I will assure you that is not going to go into anybody other than the people who are going to be helping to evaluate and package a financial aid offer for you. That's the one thing. The second part of it is most colleges are interested because to attract students, because more like, for example, the demography shift is pretty much there's less high school students graduating now. It's always, I would say, it's a buyer's market rather than seller's market in terms of college choice. So you have to have very clear confidence to know that like what kind of university that you want to attend at what price point, and also making sure that you select to shortlist it, because you don't want to pick a school only based on price, because that is never in life it will work out good. So you want to really value for price, what value you're looking for, and then compare equivalent things and then compare for price. So in that scenario, I think like you should apply to the send FAFSA, because you have to put a code in FAFSA to send that FAFSA to that school. And that too, you don't have to do it now. Once you apply and once you're admitted, they might give a deadline by, January 1 or something like that. So you have plenty of time to do that.
Got it. Thank you. The other question, the one about the brand value of the college versus what major they are good at. So how should a student pick?
So I'm a big believer in this one, because the brand value is something, it just definitely, there's so many great colleges and so many different kind of ranking. Like for example, Northeastern is ranked in the top 50, right? But at the same time, you go and look at some other ranking, like Times World ranking or something, Northeastern will be 300. That doesn't mean Northeastern is a good school or a bad school, right? So in reality, what you're looking for is the type of student who looks at an institution need to look at, am I good to study in a place like Boston? Am I good to study in a private university with very highly competitive student set? And am I ready to be in an environment that most students will do 2 co-ops? That means 6 months for a year, they'll be in and out. So it's a very different type of environment, right? So the same thing, that the most students who are starting a college career want a successful career outcome. Nobody is starting college just to get good grades and get a good diploma and put it on the wall. I always say the thing, ultimately they want to have the next step, either they're going to study further, which again will lead them to a career path only. So the only thing is like clearly knowing that how the college or university is supporting you to prepare you with skills, what you need, not credentials alone. Experiences leads to readiness to be in a job, because most of the students that will get their first job is not going to be based on their competency or expertise. It is about their literacies and 21st century skills. That's one of the things I would always say. Are they able to communicate? Are they able to collaborate? Are they able to work in teams? Do they have the social skills and the emotional intelligence to navigate and work in a very diverse workplace? Because you are going to have 3 or 4 generations in a workplace. And to add to this thing, the pandemic has also introduced one more layer. 1/3 of the job, or at least 1/5 of the job right now, is expecting it to be hybrid or remote. So that means like you need to have a very different type of skill sets as you're going to be navigating the future. It could even, most people might want to prefer that flexibility of hybrid or even fully remote. So that means career readiness is a very important aspect. What you want to ask, not just somebody who puts them through a 4-year degree and give you a diploma, rather what kind of opportunities mindfully they're creating and curating for your student to get them to readiness. Sort of basically employability is more important first, not just having the degree.
Got it. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, now we're moving on to Ms. Priya Srinivasan.
Hi, good morning, and thank you for taking the time.
Priya, we can't hear you.
Oh. How about now?
Yep, you're good.
Yeah, thank you for taking your time and sharing valuable information with us. My question is on undecided. So when your application shows that you're undecided on your major, how does it impact the admission process? I attended another session and the counselor was saying that so-and-so, this kid, if you look at the application, it shows undecided in the application, and so he or she was rejected. So I'm curious because, like you mentioned, it's too early for many kids to decide on what they want to do. So in such cases, what's the right thing to do?
I don't know who you spoke to or who gave you that advice or information, because like I said, I kind of like make the policies and train my team leaders to execute these policies. Over 3 decades of doing this, I can tell you, never a student is going to be ever discouraged in terms of selection because they are undeclared. We in fact like renamed the program to call Explorer program. We called it as an Explorer program so that we take the stigma out of it and absolutely made sure that it is not part of any college. So we put it under the provost office, so that means they had access to all colleges. So why I say this, like even Northeastern is considered to be very selective, right? So even there, I can tell you, the president himself used to say, in most of the time, he said like everyone should change their major at least once. We used to kind of say, no, don't say it like that, because it's almost like it makes it as a demand when it comes from the president. But still, I always encouraged by his real point he's trying to make is what I always appreciated. It is so, the world is multidisciplinary. There's never one field ever exists in isolation. So that means the interdisciplinary nature of things is what actually makes somebody very successful in whatever they do. In that scenario, to make sure that they are able to have that kind of opportunity is extremely important. Just to kind of give you additional thing, Northeastern have one-of-a-kind program which became extremely popular. For example, 1 in 3 students who are actually starting at Northeastern, since that's one of those my babies. So I kind of like really passionate about that, because this is really proof of concept, right? 1 in 3 students are starting in a program called combined majors, because that's not double major, that's not dual major, it's a combined major that actually takes 2 majors and connects, and does not increase time to graduation or does not increase your cost of degree. So that's a very unique program, one of a kind in the country. There are 150 different combinations. So 1 in 3 students at Northeastern today is in those kind of programs. So that also, in addition to that, there are students with undeclared. So imagine that thing. So 1/3 of them, or at least if you think about it, 1/4 of them undeclared, and then you have 1/3 of the students are coming as combined majors. That means that's your half of the student body having the flexibility to move between.
Thank you. That's reassuring. My second question was with test optional, how does that impact? For example, so does the kid, let's say, takes the SAT, but did not fare well and chooses not to show, but has a well-rounded, accomplishments with community and essays and GPAs and everything.
Yeah, test optional is a big, sort of subject matter that affects college selection itself. I'll tell you, it changes the choice set dramatically for the students in many different ways. For example, most colleges, kind of like, I know for sure how I kind of at least had to react to that, really do not disadvantage a student who's test optional versus who submitted testing. So it's like apples and oranges. So you take that, like Yamika was mentioning about how the essay written for honors program was not used for general admission. The same way, the testing students are seen as their own cohort and selected, and then those non-testing and submitting students, test optional students, are considered as a separate cohort. If you think like that, that'll give you a good guidelines of how they are. They don't compare to at all. However, what changed was the test optionals is really allow the students to suppress their test scores. That means like there's only the top tier of the students who are really testing well or submitting. So that means like before, let's say a 1400 student will have a very high chance in a university. Now all of a sudden, there's no other comparison because the 1400, everybody who's submitting is either they're 1400 and above. So the 1400 becomes the bottom of that whole sort of, if you put them on a curve, they are in a different kind of end tail. So it puts a very different pressure, and also the universities are also kind of adapting to how we are being fair and equitable to both groups. So overall, I would say, try to know which school you're applying for and how you're kind of trying to do this thing. However, if you really go back and check a little bit, do some research, you can find out what percentage of the class actually coming in as test optional will tell you whether to try to be test optional or not in that school. For example, some of the test optional schools still enroll majority of the students with testing, even though they are test optional. So those are the schools you have to be mindful about how you are navigating. So again, you have to do your research to really know which school and how they are actually adapting to that policy, and how students are adapting to apply to those kind of colleges.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we're going to move on, but I will say if everyone can keep their questions quick so we can get through everyone because there's a long list. Next, we have Mahima.
Hi, thank you so much. This meeting was very informational. My question was about foreign languages. I know a lot of colleges look for 4 years of foreign language, but I took 2, and my junior and this year I couldn't fit in another language because I wanted to take some other classes instead. So how do you think that works in my favor?
That's hard to say. Again, it depends on which school you are going to apply. That's the standard answer I will give you because it's a context. That's why I used in the beginning example. It's not one size fits all, because in some places it may work against you or sometimes it may favor you. It depends on which school and how you're positioning yourself in a holistic level. Again, this is not a singular thing, it's a holistic level.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Next, we have Raj.
Hi, thanks for the session. So my son is studying in India for a +2 in science stream. So just want to check it out. What are the options? Whether you want to continue in India or you want to come to here, still in Delamo. So for science students, what are the options we have?
You mean for high school, completing high school and coming here for their bachelor's? Is that what you're asking? Okay, yes. Plenty of opportunities that can. What do you call? I would just say, if he's ready, and he should just begin to apply. Doesn't matter, because as long as he's prepared to succeed in this academic environment, then no problem at all.
Yeah, but if you see, right, in India, it's like a NEET will be there for MBBS. So, but here I think we need to continue for 4 years degree, and then you go for MD, right? So, is it a lengthy process for science students, or like how it is?
Absolutely, there's 2 different educational systems, right? So,
okay, but they should,
yeah. So, if you want to be a doctor in 4 years, they should stay in India.
Okay, but later he can come back, or any option, or like
yeah, of course they can do USMLE and then try to come here, and still it'll be the same length of time.
Okay. Yeah. But costing perspective, like what do you suggest?
Cost perspective, again, it depends on in India how expensive the college that you may end up sending versus here. because the Indian colleges are almost in price parity nowadays with US education with scholarship. So I would just say, if you really think about bachelor's degree or just sort of studying MBBS, then the price parity will be pretty similar.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
We can move on to the editor.
Yeah, sorry. So I had a question. Thank you, first of all. This meeting has been really good, especially because I'm working on college apps right now. I had a question. So I applied to UPIT about a week ago. So I want to also apply to the Honors College. Do you think I should get started on the Honors College essay right now? Or since UPIT is a rolling admissions, should I wait until the results come out and then apply before December? Because that's when the Honors essay is due.
One word, no procrastination. Never procrastinate, never procrastinate. That's all. So I would say, if you want to apply, do it now. And even if you want to apply at a later date, I would do your first draft now and run it through multiple versions. So give yourself more time to perfect your essay, and it increases your ad. So I may sound redundant in some of these things, but actually it is very simple. If you want it, you get it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Next, we have Sasi, the iPhone.
Hi, thanks for this session, very informative. I have a couple of questions. One is, so there is different school districts, which is some school districts are really hard and some school districts are really easy. So how does the GPA really value between, say, a tough school district versus the other school districts when it comes to the application? Because the GPA that's graded in a tough school district would be different from a very normal school district. That's one of my questions. My other question is, you already answered a flavor of it, but I have a different one. Say somebody scores an average GPA, but scores a really good score in the SAT. So how does the college look at those kind of things?
So the first part, I got it very clearly, but the second part, I'm not so sure. But let me start with the first part of the question. This is another thing that you have to keep in mind. The applications are not seen as a whole. Like, let's say somebody gets 10,000 applications, you're not competing against 10,000 applicants. You are actually competing within your school. Most likely, they are just going to look at, if they got 20 applications from that school, they're going to compare within that 20 how the student have performed. So if it is a tough school, it is also going to be in your student's favor, as long as not too many of them are applying. And second part of it is, if too many is applying, where within that the too many, which part of that spectrum the student is falling. Because if somebody went to a tough school, but all the well-performing students in that school ended up applying to a college, and then when you apply there, so definitely the tough school does not matter at that point in time. You're going to look like you are in the bottom of the heap in that school, the type of applicants you received. So it's again, when you look for where the students are applying, too many of them are applying to one school, that's a big red flag, because then everybody is going to literally be on a single lining order of saying how they are going to compete against themselves. So that's one of the things. So it'll help. It depends on which school and how many of your school students are applying to that college for what type of application, also ED versus EA. I would recommend always using ED if you are 100% sure about a school. 100% means, like, if I get admissions, if I apply to 10 schools, if I get all 10, I will go to this school. That should be the school that you should be applying as ED. And that, why? Because you have the highest chance compared to any other application methodology you will use than ED. Because at least you will have 50% higher chance than applying EA. Definitely RD is going to be highly competitive.
Yeah, my other part of the
You're breaking up. I can't hear you.
good in the.
I didn't hear you. The first
Can you hear
part
me
itself.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Can you? Okay, sorry. So somebody scores an average GPA, but scores a really good SAT in the test optional thing. How does it work out?
So again, the GPA is the one that, again, if you submit testing and your GPA is combinationally looked at, if you're only test optional, that means your test score is suppressed, and that means your only GPA will be used in the selection process. So it's kind of, if both are good and competitive versus testing is high and your GPA is somewhat like not as high as it could be, then your high test score will help, assuming you are within that range. For example, if an average GPA at a school is, let's say, 3.8, your student is 3.5, in that scenario is going to help. But if they are 3.0 and a 1500 SAT, sometimes it's not going to be as helpful in those kind of situations. Again, okay. It's also what type of school you're applying. I kind of say like it's a tight range. It allows you to compensate and push you into the same viewpoint. Again, the GPA could be a result of taking multiple AP versus the other student getting 3.8, not having as many AP, then the 3.5 will have a favorable viewpoint.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Next, we have Mas.
Hi, thanks for the session. It's very good. I have just two questions. I'll quickly ask that. My son is in Boy Scout of America. Is that be considered as a community activity that he can climb in his application? That's first question. And the second question is, in your earlier presentation, you mentioned we could get a recommendation letter from dad and mom as well. I don't know how that would be considered better than what we're taking from teachers or somebody else. The third question is from Scoutmaster. Can we get a recommendation letter as one of the recommendation letter in the application?
You can get from anyone that you think will be able to well represent you in terms of explaining, and you should ask them, can they write a good recommendation for you? Then you make sure that if they talk to you, what do you want them to highlight about you, you can have a dialogue with them also. But okay. The mom and dad part of it is, I would say, different colleges and universities are actually explicitly calling out for that now. You can ask and everything. So it's a kind of a add-on in some cases, but some cases they explicitly say, in fact, there's one university, I can't remember their name, they were actually asking the parents to write a nomination letter for a scholarship. So, so things like that is also happening. So I think, again, it just allows a interesting viewpoint to be added. But again, it depends on what type of school, what type of competitive level your student is.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Before we go on, Mr. Kumarasamy, is there any contact information I can put in the chat for people in case they want to ask questions later on to you? Or would you prefer they ask in this session?
I think, I mean, they can find me in LinkedIn, but I will do my best through that. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, then we can keep going on. Mr. Prakash?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me? Yeah, it's a very informative session. Thank you, Mr. Kumarasamy. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, the question is, see, most of us, like, we came recently to America, like maybe 4 or 5 years. So the kids, they joined in the middle school later, and then they got into the high school. And one, I wouldn't call it as a disadvantage, but what we see is like they are not eligible for the research internships, okay, that is paid, so they are not able to take that. Either you have to have a green card or you should be a citizen, okay. In that case, they end up writing only the volunteering and community service in the essays. But so do they see as a gap, like people who are going for the internship, they have a better advantage over people who go for volunteering?
Not at all. That's not a disadvantage at all. Again, if you look at it holistically, specifically now, the post-pandemic world we live in, there's not much on-ground internships, or even many people is not able to keep up with the workforce changes that are happening and everything, not alone have internships available to high school students. So in that scenario, that is not even a what I call as a big advantage or a disadvantage when you don't have it. So I would just say other activities that are going to be available to students at the high school is more important for them to participate rather than outside.
Okay. So is it for, no, I'm, the reason is it's for the STEM field. So,
matter.
Okay.
It's not going to affect at all, because at the end of the day, we want them to be ready to demonstrate the readiness and interest by taking the courses in the classroom, not necessarily doing internships and research and other things.
Okay.
Again,
And is there
what kind of a university you're applying, what kind of programs you're applying, that again, it's a context is why I would say all these things you have to have the context of. It depends on the type of competitive schools that you're trying to apply to and the competitive programs, what they look for. So that being said, 80% of the time, you're not going to have the thing that 20% of the schools might give an extra look if they have those things, but that is not going to become, again, the word is holistic, never any one thing. There are, like Harvard can fill the class with perfect test score takers, but they won't. So that's why I'm saying, like, it's not, and they can just fill the class with the 4.0 kids. So that's not how they do it. So they have to represent the society at large. Every university have to have that kind of a mix. So that means they're looking for like multiple type of diversity in the class, diversity, not just ethnic diversity or racial diversity I'm talking about, the type of major they are interested in, type of backgrounds they're coming from, international student versus out-of-state student versus in-state student. So you name it, there's so many, and also majority of the schools have sports. That means 1 in 5 students are going to come play some sports. So they have to fill, it's like an orchestra, right? They can't have all the tuba players. They have to have a different kind of instruments. So that means they have to have a very diverse, talented student body with a different kind of backgrounds coming in.
Thank you. I have one short question, if time permits. The other one is, the H4 is not, they're also not eligible for FAFSA. So is there, we know there are some scholarships available where they accept anyone. So is there anything beyond that is available?
So the FAFSA is mainly for 2 things. Most of it depends on your cost of attendance of the school that you're attending and the EFC of your family income level. That will decide whether you are eligible for any sort of like Pell Grant and other things, which most of the kind of people who are in this call most likely may not qualify. I have a feeling.
Okay.
But the only thing it'll give you option is the federal loans, and the rest of them are going to be very little grants are available. Need-based grants are going to be available, but merit scholarships are very, very prominent in most schools. So you may be able to get almost up to 50% or even some cases 60% with the good academics alone. So that just offsets a huge part of your education. So if you really think about it, a 4-year education literally becomes a 2-year cost.
Okay, thank you.
Now we can move on to Ms. Bindu.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I basically have 2 questions. I'm in the, before my questions, I would say that I'm in the starting process of, I mean, like I'm far away from college admissions, but still, like children in the high school, they like to explore, as you already mentioned, they like to explore and they want to take up, multidisciplinary courses and see if they are interested in. So does that kind of selection of electives help them in college admissions? That is my first question. And my second question is, how much involvement in sports and arts, like say photography or drawing and dance, that helps in college admissions?
most likely, again, it helps to paint a student's overall sort of as a person with a multidisciplinary interest like sports, arts. It makes them look what I call holistically better than somebody who's just like a paper tiger who just only studies and gets good grades. So they are going to definitely have a very different kind of outlook than just somebody who's good in studies alone. The second part of it is like simply the exploration. See, ultimately, I would tell you this is very, very important, especially nowadays. I see a very important aspect of college selection and supporting children is the pandemic created so much anxiety and pressure for, in the high school itself, there's a gap that happened. Whether it is recognized or not, it is reflecting in their mental health also. So the anxiety and other related issues, in order to kind of alleviate, what I would just say is allowing them to have that freedom to explore and choose and have a guided journey is extremely important. So however you can say they are going to find a good college and a good degree with good experience, they are going to land in a career. So the average, what I call is like only even depends on what type of field you want to go and everything. Different colleges make a huge difference. But if you, what you put in college is actually what comes out. Not necessarily a degree alone is going to make somebody successful in a job or get a better job. Because still, even a Harvard student have to go and attend an interview and get a job. That means like they are going to look for their ability to communicate and work with the different people, and the readiness is one thing, but their ability to work with others and retainability is another big thing. They want to look at people not as a sort of revolving door, people who have commitment, and those are the kind of qualities that are going to come through a well-structured journey for the student. So it's a long answer, but I would just say continue to encourage a multi experience opportunities, sports, arts, and exploring what they want to study. And it's almost impossible for them to know what they want to study when they are in high school.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that answer.
Okay, great. We can move on. FH is the name for the participant.
Yeah, hello. Thank you for the session, but I had a question I think that was already touched upon earlier about like established branded colleges. So usually for like some of these, the cost of tuition is kind of high and they don't have many merit scholarships. Is it still worth to go here and not like and pay like the larger price, or is it worth to save it for like PG if you're planning to go on to another like after undergraduate or something?
I know many students who opted for the second, what you said. I mean, believe it or not, I kind of have seen multiple years. I can tell you different stories, how the students went through that decision making. If you really think about it, if they are confident and they are good, they just need to have a good education. Sometimes students actually chose a college that gave them full tuition scholarship and completed and immediately went to study in like what I call the branded colleges. What you're saying is more competitive universities. So that's something that I've seen that time and again happen from multiple institutions. I've seen that happen. So I would just say clearly, brand is not going to get you successful in life or career. I mean, that's something I would just tell you simply because you have to be ready for jobs and careers that doesn't even exist next 10 to 20 years. When you look at the timeline, what you're studying now and what jobs you think you're going to have may disappear, but the new ones are going to emerge. So that means you have to have readiness to absolutely have the agility to continue to learn and continue to be curious and have a very different outlook about how you're going to learn and continue to upskill, and also credential yourself in the future. So for that reason alone, you don't want to burden yourself with too much loan on one degree. Rather, give yourself a longevity of time period to really see where you want to kind of make the next bet and where you want to kind of, what you want to study and deepen your expertise.
Oh, okay, thank you. And also about the major, you said, would double majoring increase the cost of tuition, or is that like, will it be the same price?
The double majors will increase the cost, and the combined major, what I was mentioning about Northeastern, is the only kind of a program that I know in the country that actually does not increase the cost.
And then how about like minors?
Minors, still, again, if you kind of take within your elective structure, then it wouldn't increase your cost, but it will reduce your ability to have other electives. When you do all your electives, double down on your minor.
Okay, thank you.
We can move on to Mr. Arunachalam.
Hi, everyone. My question is, right now I'm pursuing a BTech degree in India. I would like to do MBA in any top 10 MBA institute. So my question is really GMAT and work experience is important?
You said top 10 MBA programs, right?
Yes, yeah, top 10, yeah.
Definitely, you just wanted more than a couple of years experience and a very top GMAT score you need to have.
Example, like above 700 or above 650
Depends.
range?
Again, depends on which program. If you are applying to Stanford or Harvard, that's a different.
Okay. So, and what about?
But you have to be in that 95th percentile kind of range.
Okay, got it. And what about like letter of recommendation will help us to get the chance?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's plus that, because again, it's a holistic review process. Your work experience, recommendation, and your academic records, plus your GMAT.
Extracurricular activities, is that
That's
included?
not that much for master's degrees. Any master degree, not just MBA.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Sure.
We can move on to Rahul Manoharan.
Okay, can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, I just had a question. So basically, a lot of kids, they do ask me, like, as for a testing perspective, which one is better to take or to take both, like SAT and ACT. And some people would say, like, oh, in the Midwest, they like ACT better, but East Coast and West Coast, love SAT better. So what advice would you give to those students who are trying to choose either to take both or take one or the other exam? Thank you.
That answer is very easy, because most institutions accept both. And whichever the test format actually you are able to perform well, I would choose that. There's no difference. So you're free to take either one. And most institutions do the super scoring. If you take SAT multiple times and ACT multiple times, then most institutions nowadays super score also.
Thank you very much. And then I'd like to add just one point, because I know before a person was saying, going to a branded school versus a smaller school. And I know like people have suggested to me, when I was doing my process back in like 2011, they were saying that if I went to a smaller school, I did really well with smaller class sizes, then it would be helpful that I could go to a master's program, versus going to a bigger school. It's the brand, and if you want to get a job right away, it helps you, because I think you'll be known all around the USA and not just the region that you're in.
So I think like you're hearing a lot of people telling you what to do. So that's the first thing I would just caution you. First and foremost, just kind of reduce the noise around you. That way you are basically trying to understand, what do you want to do? And where do you think you want to be? First, answer that question irrespective of what other people think. And that's something really important for you to do, because otherwise you are always going to be just adapting to what other people think, what is the next best thing you should be doing. So my advice is simply narrow down, sit down, and try to understand exactly what you're trying to do. What do you want? And then be vulnerable in answering that question, because you'll be scared. But sometimes you may not be sure. That's okay. But sometimes you just need to make the decision and own it, rather than, I rather you do try to do what you want to do and fail and learn and then adapt, rather than just play by somebody else's playbook.
Thank you. And my last question I just wanted to ask, as you kind of brought it up, like do what you wanted to do. A lot of people ask me, like,
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay, so a lot of people ask me, like for majors, choosing and switching. They ask me like, what's the right time to choose a major? How long do you have to switch? And so some of the parents, they get really scared that a person has been undecided within his first semester. So how do you like go about explaining to that and keep them calm that they have time to switch if they want to switch from pre-med to computer science, for example?
Yeah. Second or third semester, after completing 2 or 3 semesters, is the best time to make the transition. If you're doing first semester, let's say most computer science students change to information systems or something else because they didn't realize how much math is involved in it. Sometimes they think it's all programming. So in that scenario, they should change after the first semester. But if you're undeclared, you should give yourself 2 semesters at least to try different courses, and then at least third semester to kind of narrow down whichever the field you think more likely you want to go in, and make sure that you are working closely with an advisor so that you don't end up adding additional courses or time or cost to your graduation. So it's academic planning. If you can do for 3 semesters without any problem.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, so we are going to be wrapping up in about 15 minutes, 20 minutes maximum. But before that, we wanted to highlight an upcoming event. 1 second, let me get the details. FETNA's Ilakya Guru co-chair, Ms. Pratibha Prem, has an announcement for everyone. So if she would like to come in and speak very quickly.
வாங்க பிரதிபா, அன்மியூட் பண்ணிக்கோங்க. அன்மியூட் பண்ணு.
Sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. It's a great session. Thank you so much for giving all the inputs for our next generation. இப்போ நான் தமிழில் பேச போகிறேன். ஏன்னா நாங்கள் எங்களுடைய இலக்கிய குழு அறிமுகத்தை பற்றி உங்கள் அனைவருக்குமே சொல்லணும் அப்படின்றதுக்காக தான் ஒரு சின்ன அறிமுகம் கொடுக்கறதுக்காக உங்களோட இணைஞ்சிருக்கேன். இந்த ஆண்டோட இலக்கிய குழுவோட முதல் நிகழ்ச்சி நடக்க போகுது. ஆமாம், முதல் இலக்கிய கூட்டம். இதில் சாகித்ய அகாடமி விருது பெற்ற நமது தமிழகத்தின் புகழ்பெற்ற எழுத்தாளர், தமிழர்களிடையே மிகச்சிறந்த ஒரு வரவேற்பை பெற்ற எழுத்தாளர் திரு எஸ். ராமகிருஷ்ணன் அவர்கள் நமக்காக கலந்துக்க போகிறாங்க. அவர் நம்மளோட சின்ன குழந்தைங்க, அடுத்தடுத்த ஜென்ரேஷன் குழந்தைங்க, அடுத்த தலைமுறை தமிழர்கள் நீங்கள் நிறைய இருப்பீங்க இந்த இடத்துல. இவர் ஒரு மிக பெரிய எழுத்தாளர். இவருடைய எழுத்துக்கள் ரொம்பவே ஒரு சிறப்பான எழுத்து. அனைவருமே இவருடைய கூட்டத்தில் கலந்துக்கோங்க. இது நம்மளுடைய முதல் இலக்கிய கூட்டம், 2022-24 ஆண்டுக்கான முதல் இலக்கிய கூட்டம். இதில் நம்மளுடைய எஸ். ராமகிருஷ்ணன் அவர்கள் எழுதப்படாத உண்மைகள் என்ற தலைப்பில் பேச போகிறாங்க. இந்த நிகழ்ச்சி நம்மளுடைய அக்டோபர் 22ஆம் நாள் சனிக்கிழமை நடக்க இருக்கு. காலை 11:30 நம்மளுடைய அமெரிக்க நேரம், ஈஸ்டர்ன் டைமுக்கு 11:30க்கு நடக்க போகுது. நீங்கள் எல்லாருமே கலந்துக்கிட்டிங்கன்னா மிக சிறப்பாக இருக்கும். ஒரு அடுத்தடுத்த தலைமுறை குழந்தைகளுக்கு தமிழையும் கொண்டு சேர்க்க வேண்டும் என்பது தான் நம்மளுடைய ஃபெட்னாவோட ஒரு மிகப்பெரிய ஒரு நோக்கம். இதை சீரிய முறையில் நீங்கள் எல்லாருமே செயல்படுத்தி கொடுக்கணும் அப்படின்னு ஆசைப்படுறோம். வரும் அக்டோபர் 22ஆம் நாள் சனிக்கிழமை காலை 11:30 ESTக்கு கண்டிப்பாக எங்களோட கலந்துக்கோங்க. மிக சிறப்பான ஒரு நிகழ்ச்சியாக இருக்கும் அப்படின்னு நம்புகிறோம். நன்றி.
கேள்விகளை தொடரலாம்.
All right, we can go back. Miss Inia Chandrakumar.
Yeah.
So I just had a question about like letters of rec. So I have this teacher that I was like okay, so first off, like when would you like ask for a letter of rec, like junior year, senior year, or not senior, but yeah.
So if I understand your question correctly, when should you ask for the recommendation letter? Is that correct?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so normally you should just start talking and shortlisting and have this discussion with your teacher, ideally in your junior year, and make sure that because sometimes they will not be able to say yes to every student. So it is better to kind of stay ahead and put, seed them with whatever request that you have, because normally they will write a handful of students only because they can't write for too many students. So in that scenario, you might want to just talk to them as early as possible in your junior year, at least.
I had another question. Sorry. So I have this one teacher that I was planning on asking, but she hasn't really written any letters of recommendation before. So would you recommend asking her, or like, would you recommend asking a teacher with like more experience writing these letters?
Again, if the teacher could write, because is the teacher is new to the school, then maybe you want to definitely give it a shot if you think like they will be able to write a good letter of recommendation for you. But not just because they have not written before shouldn't stop you from asking them if you think they can give you a good recommendation.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, next is the Zoom user without a name.
Hey, this is Shubha here. Thank you so much for you're able to hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much for your insightful information, sir. This is a question regarding my son. He's in senior year this year, and he has a mediocre GPA and mediocre test scores, but he has taken a lot of APs, IB, and dual enrollment. So my first question is, will dual enrollment and IB be considered equally challenging as AP? And my second question is, he has also done summer internships in STEM, and he's also chosen a work-based learning throughout the senior year. So will this also aid in the college selection?
Definitely, yes. I think like your student definitely is taking rigorous curriculum and dual enrollment, things like that. So I wouldn't too much worry about the GPA alone.
Okay.
So that there will be a good school with viable options will be available to, including credit transfers could be available.
Okay, sir, thank you. And what about the work-based learning that we have here in Georgia? You have any insight on that, sir?
That's again, as long as if there is something is kind of going to strengthen the application, definitely it'll be considered. It depends on, again, which schools you are going to look for. You might want to look for schools to have a specific IB related credit transfer policies published.
Okay,
Because
thank you so much.
IB is pretty much equivalent to AP in most cases.
Right. Thank you so much, sir.
Levels are there, so I'm just saying, but still it will be very competitive.
Okay. And my another question I have is regarding courses in college which are dual programs like UG plus PG. Is that a better option to consider just other than the UG itself?
If there is some credit double counting that reduces the length and the cost of a master's degree, then yes. If not, I would just say that giving some more flexibility for those things to happen later is fine.
All right. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure.
Hi. Okay. Before we move on with the list, Vidya Farouk had put their hand up in the chat earlier. So if they can ask their question.
Thank you, Yamika.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I have two questions. One is regarding the recommendation letter. So before that, I want to say I have twin boys. Both of them are applying now. So they have a situation at home. They both went through a situation. So they struggled. And for the recommendation, the teacher should, he or she, focus on the how they did in class, or it should tie up with the personal statement they are going to write. And another thing is, can they take the recommendation letter from any of the teachers, or should it be focused on the major what they are going to take in the college?
Any teacher that can write about them as a student is fine. That should not be matter at all. And the second part of it is like how they can highlight and showcase their readiness to succeed in college. If they can showcase, that's more important than focusing on, especially if there are certain struggles they overcome. Struggle is okay. That's part of life. And they should be kind of resilient enough to overcome it. That's what that need to be highlighted and supported. So to me, it's like making sure that they get the confidence and support all around from the teacher and from your side also, as they are ready for college. But there are also, if you think the colleges should know about their situation, then you should, there are many, good programs are mandatorily available to students that have any kind of difficulties that they have to have supported through. So I don't know exactly your situation, but I would just say it's absolutely okay. There are many schools will have, especially good schools that focuses on well-being of a student as they are kind of bouncing off of any challenging situation. You should look for the right school also to support them.
Okay, thank you. And the teacher can be from any of the high school, like any discipline and any grade level too, right? 10th, 11th, 12th, or it should be from the seniors?
Ideally, I would just say kind of keep them who have at least not the freshman year teacher. I would just try to stay junior, senior year will be better, because that it showcases their evolution, and they can write better. Because if you ask a freshman teacher, they will not know about the students' performance or achievements during the rest of the time of their academic career. So that's why I would say it is better to ask a teacher who's a junior or senior teacher, so they can see the students' progress holistically.
Okay, so it should improve the grades. Basically, if I'm getting from a history teacher, so should it relate to that, or how the students struggled, and it doesn't matter at all? It can connect.
It shouldn't talk about that. It should talk about holistically. That most of the teachers should know how to write those letters, because they are writing for them to be ready to be a student at a college level, and how they came to know about them as a student and their strength. Struggle is okay. How they overcome struggle is what they should be writing about, or how they, navigate it is important to highlight, not necessarily just the subject matter performance.
Thank you. Regarding the personal statement, both of them can write the same statement, or because they have the same situation.
Absolutely, they must be different. Even though it may be the same situation, they have to write in their own voice.
Yeah. But they can use the same thing, output is going to be different, how it affected them. It's the same household, right? So
that's okay. That's okay, but it should not look like identical statement. Means like it could be identical story told through their eyes, through their experience, and their words. Choice of words could be different. So that's what I would just suggest.
Okay, and that can be through the
I'm sorry, can we
10th to 12th, right?
I would prefer if we could move on after this question, please. No, so you can finish answering this.
Yeah, what is the last question?
Their personal statement, can they say throughout a few years, or it should be only from 11th and 12th?
Personal statement is about who they are. what their life situation and how they are going to plan to apply their struggles and strengths to apply towards college. That's how it should be. It's not just 11th and 12th.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Yamika. Thank you.
Sure, yes. Can we very quickly go through the chat questions? I think most of them you've answered, but just one or two we can go through quickly, and hopefully we can get to as many people as we can before time is up. We have only a couple minutes. I will find the questions for you. Sridhar asked, if students spend first year as undecided, what exactly do they study in that year?
It'll be multidisciplinary, mostly core courses that will expose them to multiple fields. So that like there will be enough of advising that is different and all the courses that can transfer into different area. That's how they advise them to take the courses. So again, it depends on, sometimes they'll ask like, do you like, they ask them to narrow down, do you want to be in business and computer science? Then they will give courses, at least 2 or 3 sections. The first semester will be much more common, only advising will be different. The second semester might allow them to take 1 or 2 courses that actually will expose them to the particular subject field. So that's how it'll be. So it'll fully transferable as they their semester.
Yeah, okay. And then Saker asked, is it easy? How easy is it to switch from science art majors to engineering majors or vice versa?
It depends on the school that you're applying and the restrictions that they give you. However, for the student, it's how they are ready to take up on either direction. So if they are ready to take high level math and other things, then they can move from arts to engineering. The same thing, if they're able to do lots of writing and reading, then they can move from engineering to arts and humanities.
Okay, great. Sashi asked, are there any colleges that will admit students without any honors programs taken? I think they mean honors classes.
Absolutely, yes. There's so many colleges that are not necessarily, because most high schools do not allow all students to take honors or AP courses. So majority of the students who are applying to college don't have those kind of what I call as high level courses available to them. So hence it is absolutely okay.
Okay, great. I think there's only a couple more. Somebody was asking what a good GPA is, if it's all A's or if there's a large impact of B's and C's.
Definitely, there's not one number that is going to be just a type of courses you have taken and how progressively you've taken the course. Like if you take AP Calc, then you take AP Physics. That's the kind of progression they might look at, but not necessarily just grades.
Okay, great. I don't see any major questions left. I think we can move back on to the voice messages, but I will say I do not think we're going to be able to get to everyone. So if you prefer putting your question quickly in the chat, we can try to skim it and give you a decent answer. But for now, we can go back to Mr. Selvam, and if the rest of you can put it in the chat, we will try to answer it very quickly.
Thank you for having me here. So can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I have 2 questions. The first one is regarding the FAFSA application form. So I heard that the immigration status matters there, like those who have a green card, that has a different preference, and those who are in visas that have a different preference. Want to understand how that is affecting our overall grant from the FAFSA. That's the first question. And the second one is related to the in-state and out-state requirements. So if I am applying for an out-state college, and then in the following year, when as a family we move to that new place, can I claim in-state tuition fees from the second year onwards, or maybe the third semester onwards? That's the second question.
So the second question I'll start with. So again, it depends on the time that you are going to be in the new state that will establish your residency. Some states will say you should have filed at least 1 tax filing in order to claim the thing. So it depends on which state you're moving to and what is the length of time they expect you to establish residency. So if you do that, then yes, you should be able to kind of, there's clear guidelines on that, how the residency is established. So you should be able to find from that state or that state university. The second part of it is like in terms of FAFSA and need-based aid, most of the federal grants is available only to permanent residents and citizens. So hence that is not going to be available, or the federal loans may not be available. So the FAFSA is irrelevant if you're not a permanent resident or a citizen. So in that scenario, I would just focus on merit scholarships and private loans.
So, but if I am waiting for the green card to complete, I am not in any visa status right now. I'm just waiting for the GC to come. No, so adjustment of status period. So what is the status that I can select now?
Again, this is a little bit nuanced on that one, because you definitely are in the sort of in between, much closer to the permanent residency kind of consideration. Again, you may want to contact your financial aid office specifically and give that scenario, because otherwise they'll try to kind of binarily look at it. Are you a permanent resident or a citizen? So you want to clearly give them that nuance and then walk them through.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, I think Thiru sir and Suresh sir put their questions in the chat. 1 second. They direct messaged it to me. Thiru sir said, any suggestions or considerations for applying for twins in the economic aspect of paying for 2 tuitions?
Again, the schools you choose is what will allow you to kind of control that particular factor. There are schools that specifically have favorable treatment for siblings attending or even twins attending. So those are the schools you have to explicitly research and apply to those kind of schools. I don't think much of the state schools do much for that. I don't so. So you should be looking for mostly private schools for those consideration.
Okay. And then Suresh sir asked, what kind of support do colleges provide for kids with special needs? Are there special channels in admissions processes? And I think that will be our last question.
That definitely it exists, and it's a very fully supported in most colleges by all means that those things should be disclosed in the application. Excuse me, itself. That should allow you to seek those kind of accommodations when they become a student.
Okay, great. Unfortunately, we cannot get to every person's question, but we are on a time limit. So that will be all for today. Thank you so much, Mr. Sundar Kumarasamy, for joining us and helping Committee 208 lead this session. I hope everybody found this useful. He said you can reach him on LinkedIn if you look up his name, if you need any future contact. But I think we are wrapping up the session for today. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you for that. Hopefully it was useful.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Sundar. Thank you.
All right. Bye. Have a great day.